I would say I was resisting the idea of a call to priesthood or religious life from when I was 14. I was really aware that nobody else, it seemed to me, was thinking and feeling the way I was.
At the beginning, I was kind of hoping that the priesthood wasn't for me.
So I thought, I'll look at this and maybe it will go away. This desire that was in me for priesthood, once I look at it, it's like an itch. I'll scratch it and it will be gone.
The world still needs priests and Ireland still needs priests. A few are called to enable people to experience the adventure of living a life walking with Jesus Christ. My name is Leonard Maloney. I'm a Jesuit priest and I'm currently the Provincial of the Irish Jesuits.
My name is Father Niall Leahy and I live here in the Jesuit community in Gardiner Street in Dublin.
My name is Eamon Walls. I'm a second-year Jesuit novice for the Irish province based in Birmingham normally. I'm from Rasharkin in County Antrim, and before I was a Jesuit I was a teacher in London for about 10 years.
My name is Patrick Corkery and I'm a Jesuit scholastic and I'm in formation to be a priest. So ideally when you take vows you've decided whether you want to go on the priest track or the brother track, and I'm on the priest track. So this is my 7th year come September, my 8th year come September. Yeah, 8th year I think, yeah. So, it's the formation is so long you kind of forget how long you've been here. So when I went to college, I kind of went away from my faith. I don't know that I ever concretely say I was an atheist or anything like that, but certainly I wasn't practicing my faith. It wasn't on my mind. I didn't have an interest in it. But yet there was always this kind of thing deep within calling me to it. It just became more and more present to me, like it was on my mind a lot. And as I said, I felt I really have to do something about this. I need to get this done because if I don't do something about it, I'll regret it. And at the same time too, I was saying, well, at least when I look at it, I know it won't be for me, and then I can move on and say that I've done it. When I finally began to think about vocation, that first introduction to the Jesuits through my junior cert history course was on my mind. I'd read about them, I knew about them. The history of the Jesuit saints was there and it was very real. So I thought, well, I'll look at this. I wasn't totally committed. I just wanted to look. I hadn't decided.
I was a reluctant searcher, I have to say, or a reluctant inquirer at the beginning, but nonetheless I felt that there was a niggle there that wouldn't go away, and so I started going on vocation retreats and weekends and exploring different religious orders and congregations and dioceses. But I finally, I suppose, looked into the Jesuits, and once I started getting a sense of the Jesuit life, I was like, this actually looks really interesting and something I would actually enjoy myself, not just being dragged kicking and screaming by God to serve him as a priest.
Before I was a Jesuit, I'd always been really interested in the faith in a way that my mates didn't seem to be, and it was a mystery to me as to why that was the case. There was just something in me that was drawn to things that were holy, the things of God. I would say I was resisting the idea of a call to priesthood or religious life from when I was 14. It seemed to me at the time that the path of least resistance was to become a teacher. I wouldn't have to explain that so much as something that is radically countercultural and outside what a lot of people I knew would have expected from me.
I had to let go of being normal. That's a hard thing to let go of. I had to embrace being different. But once you enter, you realize that it's also a huge yes. It's a yes to, I would say, quite an intimate relationship with God. That when you bring all your affective needs, emotional needs, to God, you realize all of a sudden, wow, this is quite intimate. I'm relying on you now in a way. And I suppose I'm open to you now, Lord, in a way that I wasn't, open before, or wasn't drawing on you before.
I guess the hardest thing for me personally is that you do it authentically and you give of yourself fully. Whenever I get to wherever I go next and I meet, God or whoever I meet when I get there, the thing I would hope not to be able to say is that I didn't do what I should have done when I could have done it. So I always want to think that I can, at any point in time, that I will willingly give of myself for another person who needs me. And I think that's, you look at the history of the saints in the Society of Jesus, that's what they did. They were always willing to put themselves last.
If we were to look at, I suppose, the spirituality of a Jesuit being on mission, and what kind of animates us, we need to go to the spiritual exercises of Saint Ignatius of Loyola, this retreat which he composed.
Our charism is that we are called into this pattern of relating to Jesus, acknowledging our sinfulness, coming to know him as person, journeying with him through Calvary and beyond that into the resurrection. And out of the perspective of the resurrection, to come back into and engage in the world, seeing God as utterly, totally engaged in the world.
At the heart of that retreat is a meditation where Christ is calling people to labor with him. It's very important to point out that Christ is calling us to labor with him, and not just for him. Okay, we are working for him in a way, but Christ is always involving himself in that work. He's working too. That's kind of the spirituality that animates us as Jesuits. Is Christ is working in the world, and do I want to join him in that work, or how can I join him in that work? We're all called to be missionary disciples. So I would see really important part of the priest's job is to help the lay faithful be missionary. It's up to the priests to help the lay people to evangelize Ireland.
The purpose of a Jesuit is to create the conditions under which people can have an encounter with God. There's a line in the spiritual exercises: the job of a spiritual director is to get out of the way so that God can deal with this person. So that's a Jesuit's job, to get out of the way and help people have an encounter with God. We don't just want to be loved some of the time, we want love itself. We don't just want to know some true things, we're seeking the truth. We don't want to be fulfilled now and again, we want fulfillment itself. And the only thing that can satisfy the deepest desire of the human heart is God.
We're called to journey with people in their suffering. So being priest means the word, sacrament, walking with people, walking with the wounded. 'Twas Teresa of Avila put it very well, God doesn't have hands or eyes or ears now concretely in the world. We are all, every one of us is invited to be the hands, the eyes, the ears. For me, a huge part of my job, the vulnerable for me are those whom we have hurt and hurt very badly over the last 60 years. Insofar as we can heal, to at least, try.
We're sent on what's called Regency. So I was sent to Gonzaga College, and I'm from a small village in rural North Cork. This is South County Dublin. And I kind of thought at some level this won't work out because I'm very different from them, they're very different from me. I'll teach a couple of classes. I was given an office space, and I thought I'll bring my Kindle in here now and I'll be able to do a bit of reading, or I'll be able to do a bit of other work. But I find people just come. The door is always open. They want to have a conversation. They want to talk about what's going on in their lives. They want someone who's there for them, who's present to them. I suppose that's the availability as well of this life. That's the availability of being a Jesuit, that you will commit maybe a little bit above and beyond.
We're called to walk, I suppose, with the world as priests today in the recognition that we are only stewards of creation. And in some ways we've made an awful hames of it in recent centuries, the last 2 in particular. And we have to care for the planet. The intellectual apostolate is really, really important for us. We've had 5 men engaged in Rome, 4 of them very much engaged in theology, psychology, and so on. A strong, strong intellectual core is vital to that. It is they who will articulate for us.
I found a joy and a generosity in myself that I really wasn't expecting. And my prayer changed from, oh God, I hope it isn't this, to God, I really hope this is it. I would love this. Please let me do this. That was quite a change, interior change inside me.
But still, it's the constant need to give over and to trust in God and to trust that God can work through us. St. Ignatius talks about us being dwellings of the Holy Spirit, and I believe that, the Holy Spirit operates within us, but we need to cooperate as well, and I think by giving over we can cooperate.
When you're discerning your vocation, the hard part isn't really figuring out what God is calling you to. It's to have that interior freedom where you can say, okay, God, I'm here. Whatever it is that you want me to do, I'm willing to follow, and I'm willing to say yes to that. And that freedom is incredibly precious.
I suppose I'd moved from begrudgingly accepting that God wanted me to be a Jesuit and it's how I would flourish, to actually wanting it for myself and desiring it. And I would say that since I reached that point, I've become happier than I've ever been and freer than I've ever been.
Ignatius of Loyola, one of his prayers, he says, "Take, Lord, and receive, my will." The path will emerge more easily then, and it'll be less of a kind of a tug of war or less of a struggle. So yeah, try and cultivate sort of inner freedom before the Lord.